could you signal in some way that you've actually learned something from last time and like, here's what I did wrong last time, here's what I'll do right this time? It's just like a vague, like, you know, we put some bad people in, we'll put all the good people in this time. But then every time he talks about an issue,
look who he filled his cabinet with last time, the swamp. He filled it with a swamp, but this time it's going to be perfect. And he already picked Vance and.
Yeah, and he's already, look, I mean, and he's already taken marching orders from Marion Adelson and stuff. It's like, come on, you've already signaled what you're going to be.
He's been over the top for Israel. It's like embarrassing. He says like things like, oh, I want America to be like 20 years ago, you couldn't be a politician to criticize Israel. I want to be like that again, and I'm going to do anything for Israel.
Yeah, I played the clip on my show.
One. I want Israel to be bigger.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Greater Israel. What's your thoughts on that? Lebanon? I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know what's conspiracy versus true on that, but they're wearing patches with it. And
well, look, there's only so much you can judge people off of, like, and if you go based off Donald Trump's track record and based off his rhetoric, he is the most Zionist president we've ever had, and the most hardcore, much more than Obama, much more than Joe Biden even. And Joe Biden's been a pretty hardcore Zionist. He moved the
embassy to Jerusalem, which is a slap in the face.
Got the Abraham Accords through. This is what essentially every American president of my entire lifetime, at least, I don't know how far back it goes, but certainly of my whole lifetime, every single American president has always been trying to pressure Israel toward a two-state solution. And the whole goal, like if you know about the history of it, right, the whole thing with the Abraham Accords, which was Jared Kushner's brilliant idea, it's worked out so well.
Yeah, right.
He's
by the way, trying to take more land in the West Bank.
Dude, it's so many.
That guy's such a tool.
By the way, it's so goddamn frustrating because as it was happening, there were a whole bunch of right-wingers as it was happening who were bragging about the Abraham Accords and how wonderful it was, what a brilliant plan this is now. And I was arguing with them at the time that this was like terrible. And now you look at the situation and they all still argue that it was like a smart strategy. But so if you don't, essentially the thinking in Israel, or I should say the thinking about Israel, and even in Israel to some degree, like Yitzhak Rabin in the 90s, even he kind of accepted this model to some degree, that it was basically like, okay, they have this problem with their Arab neighbors, and all of their Arab neighbors hate them because of their treatment of the Palestinian people. Yeah. And so the thinking was always, well, you have to make a peace deal with the Palestinians so that you can deal with the surrounding Arab countries. And so this was essentially, even Yitzhak Rabin in the Oslo Accord, this was essentially the framework. Yeah. You got to make peace here. You got to have a two-state solution, and then you can normalize relations with your surrounding neighbors. But Benjamin Netanyahu and the neoconservatives, and Kushner's the one who really put this into effect, their whole strategy was like, no. What we'll do is we'll bribe off all of the surrounding Arab countries. Don't
understand this. Explain real quick what it is. I think a lot of people don't know what it is. Basically, right? Don't they give like all the neighbors massive amounts of money too, not to like attack Israel?
Well, this is
more money towards Israel, basically.
Well, this is essentially right. It's essentially been the deal since the 70s. Is that we'll pay? We started with Egypt, where he goes, we'll pay Egypt to not go to war with Israel.
I saw how much money we gave Egypt, and I was confused at first, but then someone explained it to me like, oh, it's so they stay neutral. They're literally paying them billions of dollars to not invade Israel, not be at war with them. It's crazy.
Well, that's right. And then, of course, when when democracy swept Egypt, so Obama did turn on Mubarak at the end. When he was after, the U.S. propped him up for decades. But at the end, then they turned on him, they overthrew him, and they held elections, and they voted in the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah. And then that government got overthrown real quick. And I don't know. I know Saudi was involved in that. I'm sure it had D.C. tentacles in it as well. I'm sure Tel Aviv, I'm sure. But anyway, essentially that's been, the dynamic in the Middle East since the 70s. But so this was the Abraham Accords was like, all right, well, let's continue that. Let's bribe the AEU, or I'm sorry, the UAE. Let's bribe
Jordan probably. I don't know the country.
Bribe them off.
It, but
give them fighter jets and missiles.
A lot of money. It's not a small amount. Of money. It's a lot of money.
So essentially, the American taxpayers,
no free health care. People, it's ridiculous.
Right. So we can bribe off with American taxpayer money all these surrounding Arab countries to sell out the Palestinians.
Right.
So essentially to let them know there is no hope of you ever gaining independence. You're going to live with a boot on your neck forever. And that's worked out. That's worked out so well.
And that's why they probably have felt no choice but to invade.
It definitely didn't help, the situation. And, in terms of like the stuff like you were talking about before with them, like the Israel, knowing October 7th was coming. I mean, it's certainly the case that they had intelligence on it. And then more than just that they had intelligence on it, there were people who were like they had the report that they were planning the October 7th thing. And then they had people who were going, hey, they're training. Like we see them preparing for this.
The festival right there.
Yeah.
I think like last minute.
But at the same time,
want to die, a bunch of hippie Jews.
But at the same time, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes with these things, you never can like underestimate just hubris.
Yeah.
And how like kind of, like there, and also just like this feeling of like we can control these motherfuckers. You know what I mean? That was Netanyahu's famous line was, "We can control the height of the flame." Yeah. And so he was basically saying like, yeah, we're funding this terrorist group there, but like we could control not letting it get here and keeping it down here. And sometimes they have these attitudes and then they realize they can actually control it, you know? So I don't know exactly what happened there, but there's no question that they were fucking playing with that game. It blew up in those people's faces.
This doesn't want to have like the hard proof, but I feel like they built him up. It allowed it to happen. That's why they moved the hippies right there. But again, it's one of those.
I don't know.
Anyways, there's a few more topics I want to talk about. We don't have that long. So let's switch it up real quick to what's going on in Lebanon right now. That's pretty insane. Well, several aspects of it. Let's start with that pager attack. What's your thoughts on that?
It was pretty incredible. I mean, it's awful. Yeah, it's awful. But I was
planned, but it was like
the fact that I was surprised that they could do that. I've read a lot about the history of like Israeli targeted assassination campaigns and things like that. But but getting into the supply chain to have, it's not only that they did the pagers, but from what I understand, it's like essentially they had gotten into their cell phones. And so all of Hezbollah started using pagers because they were concerned about Israel like infiltrating their cell phones. And then they had the pagers rigged up with explosives. A very sophisticated, operation. I mean, in a way, it's like Israel for years was always kind of like they were talked about having like the most sophisticated intelligence. And then after the last year, that reputation had kind of taken a beating because it was like, really? Well, you couldn't even stop fucking October 7th from happening or whatever. So it like they looked very weak. Obviously, like it looks weak for intelligence when something like October 7th happens. I guess this kind of was back in that direction. In the broader picture, I mean, I think this has been the biggest fear from the beginning of since October 7th, at least, has been like, oh shit, this could escalate into a wider regional war very quickly. And now it seems like, to me, it's not just Hamas, because the Palestinians are like in a different situation. I mean, the Palestinians have been beaten down and humiliated and dominated for a very long time. But then you have these other forces, like you have Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon, you have Syria, and you have Iran. Now, Syria and Iran are like real governments, sovereign nations, kind of. I mean, it violates their sovereignty all the time, and they kind of just take it, but they at least kind of could tell a story to themselves. Iran, when they assassinated that high-level Iranian in Syria, they fired those missiles. Now, they gave the U.S. warning,
so
and they
said,
kind of
a state,
but they kind
of something, save a little face.
Just save face for their own people to be like, hey, we're not a bunch of bitches, like we could do this. What they've been doing over the last couple weeks here is really going to push those, because Hezbollah is kind of like a government. I mean, they kind of rule the south of Lebanon. Syria and Iran, these guys have now been pushed so far, like humiliated so much that it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to sit there and fight? It's like you're like, like if you're out with your girl and some dude comes over and spits in your face. It's like
I'm gonna
there's
fight him.
no more like. There's almost like there's no thing you could say. There's no like this has been escalated to the point where you have like a binary option. Either you're going to do something about this or you're a bitch in front of everybody. Like those are the only two options. And this is the fear here, in a weird way. Like I'm hoping they take it like bitches, because I don't want to see a wider war where that's right. And that's the worst case scenario right now.
That could be Iran, Syria. But that also goes into that's the area greater Israel. Do you think that's like something they're really after? Because you do see them with like patches on it, like government officials, and that's that whole area. That's a big piece of a lot of the land in the Middle East.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it was. I don't remember when Netanyahu went to the UN a few weeks before October 7th last year, and he had the map of Greater Israel,
right?
just
People
all
say it's
Israel,
but
right there.
And people don't know that's like I don't know all the states, but it's a huge. It's multiple countries it involves, and that they want to take all that land.
Yeah,
and it's obviously not a secret if Netanyahu's wearing it.
Yeah, and so I'm almost. I think John Mearsheimer is basically his analysis on this is spot on, which he's like, by the way, one of the best people to read and listen to. I mean, he's like,
what's his name?
John Mearsheimer. He's like a world-renowned political scientist. He's great. He's totally brilliant. And his analysis is essentially just like that Israel has collectively lost its mind. And they're not just like a rogue state at this point. They're like a psychotic state that is actually a threat to themselves. And in a weird way, you're as I'm watching this unfold, it's like, it seems like they've gotten so crazy that self-preservation isn't even like entering the equation.
It's insane watching it from outsider.
Because it's truly like so you've totally turned global opinion against you in the last year. You have, the atrocities that you've committed are on full display for the world to see, to the point that I think there's no putting that toothpaste back in the tube. Like, I don't think it's
the young people aren't going to forget.
Well, especially that's right. Especially for the younger generation. I don't know that I'd say the view of Israel and Jews in general that has kind of been the orthodox view for, say, the last 50 years, where Jews are kind of broadly, to our parents' generation, are broadly viewed as, the group who were the victims in World War II, who have been victims. You know what I mean? Like that. That's never going to be how people look at you again.
That's gone now.
You've totally, the game has been exposed in a way that it never has before. And in this moment, you're looking to escalate. Like, you're looking to pick a bigger and a bigger fight. I don't know where all this ends up, but I am pretty blown away that just for their own self-interest, like that Netanyahu's war cabinet isn't just like, okay, declare victory and come home now. We did it. Like we responded. I honestly, I can't believe it's gone on this long, and I'm pretty worried about where it's going. Yeah.
I feel like maybe he made some kind of deal with Trump, like when he gets in, that they'll go with Iran or something.
Well,
Trump's being like, Iran tried to kill me. He's like, come on.
Well, it's something, man. And the way this is just being put out there, it's almost like a weird thing, like where you're like, even to people like Matt Gaetz, or like the people who are pushing this narrative that Iran tried to kill Trump, or is like has a team that's trying to kill him or something. It's like, so why are you not pushing for war with Iran then?
Exactly.
I mean, if that's real, then shouldn't we declare war today?
Exactly.
Like, why
trying to kill our president?
How would you not? How would your neck? Like, I could only take that position seriously if you also said, and I've drafted a declaration of war that I want to hold a vote on tomorrow with Iran.